Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. Today we have a wonderful and fantastic friend joining us, great guest from Calgary area, so about 3 hours south of where I am here in Sherwood Park, Alberta. And so again, my name is Dune Wynn, and we have Malcolm Saunders joining us today. And we're going to talk about really foods and health and in fact superfoods. Who doesn't like superfoods? Food's okay, but superfoods better, right? So let me do a quick introduction here. Malcolm, can you still hear me in the green room there, my friend? Wonderful. So let me do a quick introduction here of our guests. Malcolm Saunders' mission is to help build the health of individuals and local communities. He is the founder and creative visionary of the Light Cellar, a specialty superfood shop, Elixir bar, and teaching kitchen based in Calgary. He is the author of the book Elixir Life, where modern nutritions meet ancient herbal wisdom. A practical guide to help you craft your own nourishing beverages. Now, through his teachings, Malcolm has helped thousands of individuals recreate their relationship to food by offering insight into a variety of topics that range from the practical to the philosophical, providing inspiration and confidence for your own health journey. Friends, folks, help me in welcoming our guest today, Mr. Malcolm Saunders. Malcolm, welcome to the show, my friend. How are you doing today, all the way from Calgary? How's the weather over there, my friend?
Hey, right on. I'm doing awesome. Yeah, weather is always good. The weather is always perfect.
Yeah.
Definitely, it's a little cooler right now. There's a bit of wind this morning, but hey, it's all good as we shift into this autumn season. I know we're not there officially, but it is by account of the weather. Bless the calendar.
Yeah. I mean, tell us a bit more of expanded kind of story, my friend. How did you get here? Here you are, an entrepreneur, a business owner, an innovator, a creative person, obviously a speaker, trainer, and all of these different things converged. Tell us a bit about how you got here.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I probably the biggest pivotal turning point. It was a Tuesday afternoon, unlike any other. I'd been thinking on this big life-altering decision for several weeks now, and today was the day. So I'd come home. Mom was preparing dinner. She made some chocolate chip cookies that were cooling on the counter, and I'd come in a little bit nervous about what I was to say, to share with her. And I says, "Mom, I'm going to become a vegetarian." He just looks at me and says, "You're still going to eat this supper, aren't you?" She's Scottish, and the type of cuisine that she prepared lovingly for us in the home was meat and potatoes. Being a typical standard American kind of teenager, I love junk food, I love fast food, but something had been, kind of nibbling at me internally in terms of wanting to make a shift. And initially, it had nothing to do with health, nothing to do with food or nutrition. It was everything to do with kind of environmentalism. I was a big kind of eco-activist even back then. David Suzuki was my hero. And I was really distressed with how the way the world was going, to see loss of habitat, loss of species. And, from reading books and talking with other friends, it seemed like one thing that I could do, which was to change my diet. So overnight, I went from meat and potatoes and junk food to just potatoes and junk food, and it did not go so well. Yeah, in that moment, it kind of turned into a coming of age speech. My mom, who has provided me so much in that moment in her life, she says, "Malcolm, I support you, but I can't help you." Right? She had no idea. She was going through a divorce at the time, kind of emotionally engaged in other areas of her life. And she really wanted to support me, but I didn't even know what I was doing. She didn't know what I was doing, but it was kind of this coming of age where it's like, okay, you're on your own. And I was on my own. And that's what started me on this path. Now, spoiler alert, before I get too far down into that story, I'm no longer a vegetarian. I know when people first hear it, either like, yeah, or they cringe. there's a lot of kind of energy and a polarity around diet, especially when you get very political, which I did. I was that person that would shame you, like, oh, you eat meat, you're the problem with the world. I was very hardcore, very extreme. I went from vegetarian to vegan to raw vegan. I think I wanted to become a breatharian. I kept going further and further down the rabbit hole. Food, diet, nutrition mixed in with politics, mixed in with environmentalism and activism. And I have to say, I've come out the other side. I no longer subscribe to any diet. I don't put any title on myself. Maybe the only thing that I do is flexitarian. I'm much more that middle path, kind of the 80-20, 90-10, however you want to play it. And I'm much more about following your gut more than nutrition trends. I'm very grateful I made that choice early on, and that led me down the path that I've been on. But that was the real catalyst. Like I said, from environmental reasons, turned very much into, you better figure this out for your health. I was having blood sugar issues within the first 2 weeks. I could barely make it through a day. I had no energy, but I was really committed to this idea of changing my life to help change the world. And like many of us, when we first start to change our diet, think that, okay, maybe there's a better way. I got into whole foods. You hear this idea, okay, if you work with whole foods, you prepare things yourself from scratch, it's healthier for you. And it is. And so I dove into that 110%. There was actually a period, a couple of years, where I did not eat anything that I had not prepared myself from scratch, or I knew someone else who had prepared it from scratch. I didn't even eat at restaurants. I ate nothing from a box, from a package. It was all kind of handmade, homemade. And, as a typical teenager, I'm sure many people can relate, I did not have the skills to start off on that path. But slowly, I developed them. There were so many failed experiments along the way. So I truly am just kind of self-taught. And it was a long journey. So along the way, as I started to get a little bit more knowledge, a little bit more success, a little bit more grounding in what I was doing, I started to share that by simply, anything I would make, I would bring it. I was actually going to Edmonton, McEwen College. I did the jazz music program at the time.
Yeah.
I remember, I definitely had that expectation that I was going to go to school, I was going to go to university or college, get good grades, get a good job. And as soon as I finished high school, I did. I went into a jazz music degree because music was my life at that moment. That's another passion that you and I share, and I know we're going to weave that into our conversation. And, super intensive studies about music, along with, again, still keeping the food pieces together. So I'd make stuff at home and I'd bring over to college and share it. And there was a lot of failed experiments back then, but it's been my journey, and one thing led to another. And here I am. My mission is to help people find and learn how to craft their own food and medicine. We are, unfortunately, or fortunately, whatever, on our own in terms of figuring it out from a cultural. If we look at North America from a cultural standpoint, really the only formal training we're given is Canada Food Guide. Typically in grade 2, you learn about the food groups and the pyramids and this and that. And I don't know about you, but wasn't very helpful. I don't think we've got a very good track record as a society for how well we're doing with our food, with our nutrition. Many of us are left very confused about what to eat, how much to eat, and we struggle with diet. And it's been my passion, because I've been there, I've struggled through it. And man, I tell you, it's amazing. It's so good, and it's so worth it when you can figure it out, when you can feel so good about the food that you eat and know that it's nourishing you and that you're healthy and you experience the benefits of health. It's worth it. It shouldn't take so long. You don't need a degree to figure out what food to eat what food to eat. And I've come up with a few things to help people. So the Light Cellar, which you mentioned, it's the business, it's the path that I've chosen, is a little kind of superfood shop, a health food store to provide access. But most importantly, it's a place for community. So those that are on this path, that are looking for others, for like mind, for inspiration, for connection, it's a place for that. It's also a place for education. We are huge on what we do. Even the things that we make in store, we make chocolate, we make sauerkraut, we make all kinds of treats and cookies, healthy versions. but we teach you how to make those. We have no secrets. It doesn't serve me to, have these proprietary things and, oh, this is mine. And, it's like, I really do want, and I share this with the community because I know what we're all going through when it comes to health, navigating through it, trying to figure it out. And it's all about helping each other.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and very commendable of you. And yes, we'll definitely talk about the music a little bit more as well during the show here. And I think of what you've talked about in terms of the food and learning more about food. Isn't it amazing how little all of us, most of us, know about food, and yet we know it's an important part of human, being a human being. What we take in is very important, and yet we spend so little time learning about foods in general.
Yeah, no, it's true. And there's been a big kind of cultural divide. Like industry and marketing has taken over as being a predominant voice that has been instructing us. Even if you go back to like kind of the women's liberation movement, not a lot of people know this, but this was actually spurred on by food manufacturers, by the whole kind of, American dream. The women's lib was about getting out of the kitchen, right? It's like, oh, don't slave away, cooking all the time and cleaning, like buy these pre-made foods, packaged foods, these cleaners, this, that, the next thing. And I'm not saying that was a bad thing, but that was a huge influence that started on this path, moving away from having a very intimate hand in the making of our food, the growing of our food. And I think one of the biggest kind of wrong turns we've taken as a culture, as a society, is the industrialization of our food. Now, industrialization has brought so many benefits, but there's certain areas, especially when it comes to food, when you start industrializing the food system, that has caused a lot of problems. And fortunately now, and I know you live in Edmonton or just outside, you're connected to that community. And that was when I began first connecting back to local food, real food, authentic food, going to the farmer's market. Edmonton has one of the best farmer's markets that I've been to, where in order to be there, you have to grow it or make it yourself. And we know that, this idea of homemade food that's cooked and prepared with love or grown with love, it's the difference between that strawberry picked right off the plant, the carrot right out of the ground, the tomato from your garden, from your grandmother's garden, whatever. We've all had those experiences versus, okay, it's the middle of January, I go to the superstore, I've got this tomato that looks like a tomato, but doesn't smell like one, doesn't taste like one. We've gotten this industrialized food that for all the wrong reasons has been produced. Great, I love the accessibility of the food from our industrialized system. I love the fact that you can go any time of day, any year, 365, 24/7, you have access to any food you possibly choose, right? Like it's almost impossible to starve in North America, right? There's so many other parts of the world that are struggling with that. That is not one of our challenges, but yet there's this saying that we have too many calories and too few nutrients. Our food, though it is abundant, is empty. We're seeing the effects of these, of what's happening there. So we've got to flip that equation. We've got to get more nutrient density in less calories. And what I've been sharing, what I've been talking about, going back local, going back to authentic foods that you've had a hand in the preparation of on a smaller scale, craft, this idea of artisan is so important. And I'm loving that is the new trend. We're circling back around because we know it, we can taste it. There's a qualitative difference. And if we analyze it through science, we can see it. But most importantly, it's experiential.
Wonderful. Now, so the Light Cellar, tell us a bit more. When did you start that company, my friend?
Yeah, it was about 12, 13 years ago. It was in my basement. My wife and I, we'd been traveling a lot, following golden threads, I'd like to say, of music, of health, of meditation. And along those journeys, we ended up getting pregnant and came home and it's like, okay, well, now what? And I'd already felt the shift coming, earlier on. As someone young, I was born and raised in Calgary, but the grass was always greener. And for a time it is. You need to, I believe anyways, like leave where you were raised, go on that journey, find yourself, gain knowledge, gain wisdom. And that time come back to where I was born and raised, to put in some roots, to raise a family and start being an active, contributive member to society. And I was at a crossroads between, do I go to baking school or do I study nutrition? And I'm really glad that I chose studying nutrition, and that's further kept me on that path. And when I thought about, okay, how do I want to share with the world, how I want to help people find and craft their own food and medicine, I was really drawn to speaking, which I know you are as well, like sharing a message. And I never, ever dreamt of opening up a health food store. It wasn't in my original plan. I just wanted to share what I was learning. I knew how to make healthy chocolate. Imagine that. Like superfoods. More people need to know this, right? So
there you go. Healthy chocolate, folks. I'm going to underscore that. I'm going to just reiterate that. Healthy chocolate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we'll get into that. Like, what do I mean by healthy chocolate? How do you create that? Well, you can make it in your house from scratch by hand in like 20 minutes. So it's all about choosing the best quality of ingredients. So we've talked about the difference between, industrialized food that maybe is grown and produced for certain characteristics. If you take the tomato, okay, we need a firm skin. We need to pick it while it's unripe because it's got to ship, in these containers, and then it's got to, be handled in this way, and then it's got to go to the produce store, and all these decisions that are made for a certain aspect of food versus, hey, we're choosing genetics and we're growing based upon flavor, we're growing based upon aroma. Chocolate is no doubt the same way. Most of us, what we know of chocolate is this kind of industrialized commodity versus an heirloom special food, kind of like the tomato or the strawberry, and the taste spectrum is so different. So you start with this high quality genetics that is in its pure form full of nutrition. And then how do we process it? How do we manufacture it? I used to think the word processing was a dirty word, right? Oh, processed food, no, can't eat that. Well, actually, as humans, that's what we do. Yes, as much as I'm into raw foods, I'm into processed foods as well, but it's intelligently processing them, making them nutrients more bioavailable, making the flavors and the aromas. How can we work intelligently in crafting our food? And you can absolutely do that with chocolate. Just one little quick aside, maybe to kind of insight a window into that world. You've heard of Dutch cocoa, dude? Have you heard of that?
No, I have not.
Okay, well, most like cocoa powders, they claim that they're Dutched. And it sounds very good. Oh, Dutch cocoa. This is very nice. And it's considered like the high-end, the premier cocoa powder. And sure, it's very nice. It was a Dutchman, no surprise from the name, that had invented this way, like Van Houten, very famous name within the whole chocolate lineage there, a way to help debitter chocolate, because chocolate in its natural form is very bitter. Think of like, 80%, 90%, 100%. The higher up you go, the darker, the more bitter it is. So he thought, okay, how can we kind of slightly debitter this? There's actually some acidic notes and tones in just kind of natural chocolate. So he wanted to kind of alkalize that out, made the color richer and darker. So again, certain characteristics were emphasized, and there was this process called Dutching where we add alkalizing agents, and it produces these things. Now, when we do that, we actually diminish these antioxidants, these anthocyanins, these flavanols that we know to be heart healthy, that are good for our brain. Science continues to come out more and more about all the health benefits of chocolate. Question is, what type of chocolate were they studying that shows these health benefits, and what type of chocolate are we consuming? So in these flavanols in natural chocolate, just unprocessed cocoa powder, undutched, you've got 0.4 milligrams per gram of these heart healthy flavanols. As soon as you lightly Dutch it, it goes from 0.4 to 0.2. Soon medium Dutch, 0.14, heavily Dutch, 0.04. Yeah. So immediately begins to change the nutrient compounds just from that one process alone.
Yeah.
So chocolate as a whole kind of rabbit hole that I've deeply gone down because it's the food that we all love. I mean, it's been my favorite food forever, but yet for so many years I was a closet chocoholic. You know, here I was, a whole food Puritan. I don't eat white sugar. I don't eat white flour. Right? I'm better than you, but I eat candy bars. Because I didn't know there was an alternative. I didn't know that I could upgrade my chocolate to the same level that I'd been moving everything else in my life. So that was a big part of how Light Cellar came about. I was like, hey, you can create this yourself, fermented foods. You can create this. And then folks would be like, okay, great. Well, how do I get this natural cocoa? How do I get this undutched cacao? And I was like, well, I've been ordering it for myself. I bought a big bulk box, you know, because that's what I do. I buy in bulk, you know, for myself personally. So maybe I'll share a pound or two with you. And first it was with friends, and then after classes, and then, you know, it'd be 2 weeks later, and like, that was great, Malcolm. Ever since your class, I've been making this chocolate. I've been doing this, I've been doing that, but I need more ingredients. And I was like, well, I guess you can just come on over. And so one thing led to another. And my wife and I were like, okay, maybe we should set up a little store, like, you know, in the basement. People can come by on a Sunday. And so I'd come by on the Sunday. I'd have chocolates that I'd made. I had some of the bulk ingredients. Maybe I'd teach a class. And that went on for about, you know, year and a half. And at some point, you know, those I was building relationships with, they're like, Malcolm, this is awesome. I'm loving the relationship, loving what I'm getting from you. And I'm trying to tell my friends, but they think it's a little weird. They're like, it's like you're my superfood dealer. You know, I've got to go around the back and knock twice. So at some point, you know, we decided, okay, it seems to be moving in this direction. We wanted to create a little bit more separation between our family life and this kind of developing business life. And we decided to get a little retail spot here in Calgary along the Bonus Main Street. And so that was 11 years ago that we got our official first space. We were there for 10 years and have grown to have an amazing community, and we've really expanded what we're doing and what we're offering, but still really true to that heart and that core of just providing access to really good quality food, unique things, different things that you cannot find in most stores. I think one of the other kind of big tragedies of our industrialized food system is how we've narrowed down variety, right? Just think of apples, think of potatoes, think of corn, hundreds, thousands of different varieties. The genetics that we've actually reduced down to 1 to 2 to 3 different varieties. I mean, apples are probably one of the most, you know, sadly diverse examples of, you know, different genetic varieties. You got red delicious, green delicious, you know, Macintosh, this, that, but that's actually out of thousands of natural varieties, and we're losing a lot in our food system, our food chain, because of that. And so it's been one of my goals to, you know, source out different, unique foods. And this is what we call the superfoods. And I know we're going to get into that. And I know maybe someone's listening that's saying, you know, that kind of sounds like it's just marketing, right? Like my father, here's my father. He says, I emphatically disagree with the idea of superfoods. Okay, you know, like all good. And I lay no claim on what is a superfood or what is not a superfood. I mean, you know, there's no right or wrong. It's like, if it's super to you, great, let it be a superfood. But here's the thing I noticed, right? I went from this kind of evangelical nutritionist, you know, like, oh, you can't do this, you should do this, and, you know, like shaming people and getting really angry and wearing t-shirts that said, you know, milk is murder. I was pretty hardcore to coming full circle to this more kind of relaxed approach. Again, following my gut more than nutrition trends. And this idea of adding in and upgrading, right? So here's a more successful approach. Don't do what I did unless you feel called to it, of flipping your life upside down and saying, okay, I don't eat like that, now I eat like this. I mean, that's a journey that I learned a lot, but what I've seen is more successful is this idea of upgrading. Okay, great. You're eating chicken, you're eating tomatoes, you're eating, you know, milk, whatever it is, whatever your diet, maybe there are some things to change there. But most importantly is begin to just upgrade the quality, right? So, you know, inorganic, hydroponically grown tomatoes, you know, from Safeway, you're actually now going to go to the farmer's market, right? You're going to seek out local sources of those. The chicken, you're going to go as much as you can, move towards pasture raised, you know, organic, no antibiotics, hormones, you know, these small little shifts. You haven't changed anything. You've just upgraded the quality. And here's the thing that happens. Yes, sure, your health improves, but I think you're also going to enjoy the food more, because with more nutrition, there's actually more flavor. There's more aroma. You're going to develop deeper connections to where you're buying your food, right? To be able to know the farmer. There's so much kind of power and so much healing in that. So
it's the universal truth of what we focus on expands. So if we focus on our health is going to just improve based on the fact that we're focusing on it. You know, if you focus on jazz, you hopefully will get better at jazz in the long run. If you focus on rock and roll, you're going to get better at rock and roll. So you know, like out of all the hours that we have in the day, where's our focus? And very little of it for most of us focus on food. Right?
Totally. So it's, you know, and this is what I found is the easiest way is, so upgrade what you're already doing and then begin to add in these other different new unique foods, like, oh, sea vegetables, right? Like, never heard about that. How would I start using that? You know, different types of nuts, different types of seeds, different types of fruits, expanding your culinary diversity and focusing in particular what I call, again, these superfoods, which have unique, extraordinary properties. Like when we talk about cacao, one of the highest sources of magnesium. There's over 4,000 different unique chemical constituents in chocolate, in the real stuff, right? So upgrading the quality, expanding it out, adding it in. Like, instead of like, oh no, you shouldn't eat this, it's like, oh no, well, try this. There's so much else that's out there. And what I've noticed is with these superfoods, it's a profound difference. So the first one I ever came across, I was working at a health food store, just a young guy. I was in the health and body care section, and this idea of hemp seeds came out. It was hemp oil, it was hemp protein, and people went nuts for it. It was brand new food on the market, and we could not keep it in stock. People would come back week after week after week and just like, oh my gosh, like hemp, this is amazing. I throw it in my smoothies, I eat it. That. And because they were experiencing the benefit of it, right? There was no like, oh, you should really try this. Like trying to convince people, it was like, no, like I'm loving this. They felt the benefits right away. And that's a little bit different than, you know, telling somebody like, you should eat more salad. You know, like try eating more apples in your life. Those are good, wonderful whole foods, you know, blueberries, etc. But time and time again, I've seen how someone will add just one simple thing into their life and it will make a difference. They feel it. You know, medicinal mushrooms, fermented foods. It has a very immediate impact, and that should be the inspiration. It's like, wow, I feel so much better on this, right? I got to keep going with this.
Yeah. Tell us, you know, obviously you have taken on a lot of learning and educating others, but on your website, I see that you have a team of educators, a team of trainers, a team of people who actually help disseminate that knowledge as well. Maybe talk a little bit about when you started with that and how's that going and what's your future direction in the context of COVID and post-COVID. How does all those training things play out, my friend?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks for asking. So first, it started with other staff members. So I had my very first employee 11 years ago. You reach that point as kind of a solopreneur, entrepreneur, business owner, where you know you're doing everything. You're running. Okay, I gotta make the chocolate. I gotta order the jars. I have to run the till. Be open all those hours. And at some point, it gets to be too much. So you hire someone. And I'd be running around behind the scenes while he watched the shop in the front. And, at those times it was so quiet. He would read books, like all the chores are done, and he would just read books until another person came in. And then they have these wonderful, like, deep conversations. Because again, a big thing about what we offer is connection. Those of us that are on this journey oftentimes maybe feel a little ostracized from our families, starting to kind of choose different foods, eat a little differently. For whatever reason in our society that happens. So that connection, those conversations. And of course, what he was learning would complement what I was learning, what someone else was learning. So we can't know it all. We need to connect with others and share that information. So the classes, though I was teaching them, my second staff member, third staff member, they had an interest because they'd been studying it themselves, and they also wanted to teach. So we I helped them get going in terms of their own education and ability to share that they knew. So it started with the second and third staff member who still teach today, and anyone kind of within the community, be they a staff member or someone that I know in the kind of the food and nutrition space, whether that's in Calgary or in Edmonton or down in the States. I want to showcase their knowledge for wisdom because I don't know it all, right? I haven't studied. I don't have the experience specifically of being a mother and going through the whole birthing process and what we need and all the right nutrients and elements for that journey. I've got my own experiences and observations being a father, but there's a lot of specialty knowledge out there that is available. So Light Cellar's become that hub where we've been doing in-person classes since the beginning. In previous years, we've had anywhere from 2 to 5 classes a week on a number of topics. You know, maybe it's specific to pain and inflammation, maybe it's bone health, or maybe it's more kind of culinary skills, you know, learning how to ferment, learning how to create elixirs or whatever that kind of culinary tool is. So we've been offering that. And yeah, as you mentioned, as we've entered into the kind of the age of COVID, you know, lockdowns, we've been shifting more and more online. And that's the direction that we're going right now, just to make sure everyone feels comfortable, but also, you know, that we're beginning now to eliminate those barriers of time and space, right? Anyone from anywhere around the world can tune in and take the courses. So we've got a few online right now, and then we've got a whole autumn class calendar that's getting put together. We've also got a fermentation festival that's happening this autumn, but we usually do in person, that we're going to be offering online. And of course, we'll never be able to replace that beautiful experience that happens when we do collect, when we do gather in person. That's invaluable, but we're also adding to the online experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I can't help but notice you have, as you mentioned, the whole, you know, kind of calendar for all these courses and all of these things. So if I can sum it up here, you're a little bit of, obviously, you have a vision of really educating people about the power of superfoods and things like that in all aspects, whether it's knowledge or enabling them to actually have access to those foods and the retail store that you mentioned, and even just your own continued learning in that and you know, working with others in that. So tell me again, what was your mission again for our viewers who, you know, if you can kind of say all of these different things that you're doing, it boils down to?
Yeah, helping people find and learn how to craft their own food and medicine. That's it. That's what it is for me through the Light Cellar.
Wonderful. You know, Light Cellar, that's a very cool name. It has so many different kind of meanings and angles to it. Tell us a bit more about how you came to picking that name.
For sure. Yeah. Well, a lot of it was born out of my kind of raw foodie days. At Plant Foods, knowing that, you know, the source of energy, the source of all our food literally comes from the sun, is a manifestation of light. So that's one part of it. And then the cellar part was re-inspiring this idea of having a cellar. Most of us, because of our wonderful industrialized food system and having access 24/7, 365 to literally any food, why have a store of it, right? You can just go to the store. And I think that's been a big mistake. A, it costs us more. B, we're not as resilient. Like, who knows, right? Like, COVID was a big wake up for me in terms of supply chains. Anything can happen, right? Like, whether for a day, whether for a week. I mean, most of us rely on a supply chain that's got a 3-day kind of life to it, right? Like, if things were to stop now for whatever reason, deadly virus, earthquake, you name it, you know, 3 days, that's it. That's all we have on our shelves, access publicly. So, you know, I think it's only prudent to kind of follow in the steps of our ancestors who admittedly had to do it out of necessity. But for us, we do have this choice. And I love the idea of, you know, buying in bulk, storing food, preserving food. Not only is it cheaper, it connects you more to your food. So you're going to save money, you're going to feel better about your food, and it's actually more nourishing. You know, things like fermentation is a method of preserving our food is absolutely essential, but yet has more or less kind of gone by the wayside because, hey, we got refrigeration, we got shipping, but that was a big mistake. And maybe that's a good kind of segue. I want to go into what I describe as the 4 food groups. Would you want to hear about the 4 food groups?
Absolutely.
Yeah. This is not what we were taught in school, but in fact, and I'll just make a disclaimer, this is not my idea, this is not unique to me. Once you hear it, it should actually go like, oh yeah, that's pretty obvious. So it turns out that there are 4 food groups that all humans all around the world through every single culture eat from these 4 food groups. And the best thing about this is that it will not tell you what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat. That is an individual journey that for you is going to change every day, every week, every month, every season, every year. It's an intuitive journey, intuitive path, but it's a very powerful 4 food groups, a template from which to dive in. So these are, in fact, we could simplify it as the kingdoms of life. I know technically there are 6 now, if we really get into the specifics of it, but 4 kingdoms of life are plants, right? Plant foods, pretty obvious. Animal foods, again, fairly obvious. Most of us are very familiar with that. Maybe ones that aren't so obvious is bacterial foods and fungal foods as the 4th. So plants, animals, bacteria, fungi. Now, if you presented that to me as someone in grade 2, right, when I'm learning about the Canada Food Guide, and then you say, well, what about this, Malcolm? I go, okay, all right. Well, plants, pretty obvious. I eat grains, I eat fruits and vegetables and seeds, and yeah, I got it, check. Animal foods, yeah, I eat eggs, I eat milk, I eat cheese, I eat, sausage, whatever, got it. Bacteria, what do you mean by that? Okay, how about like yogurt, like bacteria fermented foods? Yeah, I drink yops. Okay, I must have that down. Fungi, not really sure about that one. Once in a while I let white button mushrooms come on my pizza, so yeah, sure, I got that one. But what is the opportunity there is that there's so much depth to that. If we really dive into each of those kingdoms and explore them to their depth and breadth, we're going to find true health and so much more nutrition from that. So the plant kingdom, yes, it's nuts, seeds, grains. We want to upgrade the quality. We want to expand out to heirloom varieties. We want to go into huge diversity. We want to talk about sea vegetables, algae, flowers, pollens. Another kind of, there's actually two insights to fully explore and maximize the realm of plant foods. One is eat the rainbow. What do I mean by that? Colorful foods, Roy G. Biv, white, brown, black. Every single food has a different color that offers different nutrients, right? And we know this, okay, orange, carotenoids, beta carotene, things like carrots, right? Oh, good for the eyes. These antioxidants, these phytonutrients, things like chlorophyll. Well, there's your green color. Well, every single color of food, as long as it's natural, has phytonutrients, these plant nutrients, these antioxidants that heal us, right? It's like, science discovers new chemical found in broccoli known to cure cancer, or whatever the headline is, right? What is that? That's a thread. When we tap into natural foods, natural colors, that is one way that's very easy, very intuitively, that we can begin to navigate our way through the plant kingdom. The second one is to explore the world of herbs. Now, I'm not a herbalist in the sense that I don't see anyone, I don't recommend herbs, I don't prescribe herbs, but I am my own herbalist. Herbal medicine has always been the people's medicine, the folk medicine, and I want to see that come back, not as a replacement for modern medicine, not saying that at all, but as a way to expand our access to medicines that we can use preventative, that we can use in acute and chronic conditions. And to simplify, what I mean by that is, and kind of a way in, if someone is drawn to, Chinese herbal medicine or Eastern European medicine, great. I mean, we have access to all the greatest herbal knowledge and wisdom of every single culture around the world, whether it's written, whether it's oral, not only the knowledge, but also the plants and the herbs themselves. So go ahead, explore it, right? Begin to flow through it and bring these things into your lives and begin to explore what the indigenous people in the environment you live in right now, what did they do? Pre-industrialized systems, pre-supply chains, right? When there was no grocery store, when there was no, pharmacy. Not that, again, I'm not saying we're not going to go to those places, but just to wrap your head around, how did people live here? How did they survive here? How did they thrive here, right? What foods were they eating? What medicine were they using? And start to bring that into your life. Even as simple as knowing that, hey, there's certain plants that can help with mosquito bites or bee stings, often very right below your feet. It's as simple as that to, hey, who knows? Maybe you will get lost in the woods one day and it might save your life. Hopefully not. Hopefully it just becomes a fun, engaging, entertaining way that you can enrich your life. But there's so much value in that to begin to explore the world of herbs. So that's the plant kingdom. Eat the rainbow, and think of herbs as a sub food group within the plant kingdom. With animal foods, we want diversity as well. Diversity. Most of us only eat chicken, beef, pork, a couple other things on the peripheral, but think of how many animals there are, right? And, fish, different types of fish. Asian cultures are very good at this. They're so much more progressive in terms of the variety and eating the whole animal, right? I'm into whole foods. You into whole foods? So many people only selectively eat parts of an animal, right? We only eat the muscle meat. We only eat the breast. We only eat, certain things, but every single part of the animal is part of a whole food diet and is key and is critical to a healthy human. Again, if we study human cultures around the world, doesn't matter who they are, where they were, they utilize the whole animal. And sure, you can say, well, no, because they had to, they were starving. But there's deep, good reason to do so, right? The bones and the alkalizing minerals that they provide and how it helps balance the muscle meat, the organ meats, and the incredible nutrient density, like the vitamin B12 content, the iron content of liver. You don't need to eat a lot. Just a little is so powerful, and it's so key to our health. And expanding beyond, what's within the animal kingdom. Again, I'm not saying you got to eat animal kingdom that's got to be beef. No, it could be anything. Could just be eggs. Could be insects. There are certain nutrients in every single kingdom that are not offered in the other kingdoms at all. And we need to have a little bit of each. And each of us needs to figure out what those foods are, how much of them, and begin to explore them. Bacterial foods. This is what led me on that tangent. We got into this right now, is fermented foods. Every single culture around the world ferments their food. Maybe before it was out of pure necessity, right? Just, okay, the harvest has come in. How do we preserve this? I got so many cabbages, or there's a migration of birds. How do we preserve that as a food source? Fermentation was utilized. And it turns out there are some essential health nutrients, principles that come from fermentation that in the industrialization of our food system, bacteria became the enemy, right? It was, how do we pasteurize it? How do we kill the bacteria? And we don't need to, because we've got refrigeration, we've got freezing, we've got all these other technologies, but now we're beginning to realize it was absolutely essential. So you got to begin fermenting your own food. And if that seems daunting, then you need to seek out locally made, crafted ferments. And again, here's the best thing about it, is these fermented foods taste amazing, right? Some of our most cultural delicacies, our most prized foods, they are fermented foods. One of the top restaurants in the world, it's called Noma. It's in Copenhagen. There is a year-long wait list, even if you're royalty, to get into that restaurant. It's like the highest of high cuisine. And guess what? Every single recipe they do has one or multiple aspects of fermentation in it. Fermentation brings flavor, not just health. So there's a bounty there to be enjoyed. And then as we get into the fungal kingdom, our lives are inseparable from both bacteria and fungi. But fungi, they have been both food and medicine for humans for millennia. A huge amount of our pharmaceuticals, I can't remember the percentage, it's about in the 60% range, have their origins in the fungal kingdom, right? That's a huge source of medicine that unknowingly we're relying upon. So now flip back to the conscious side, and what else from the fungi kingdom can we use to support our health? Is it in macronutrients like protein from, button mushrooms or oyster mushrooms? Or is it getting into these medicinal mushrooms, things like reishi, things like chaga, that are immunomodulators, that are anti-inflammatory, that basically are providing solutions for the ills of our society? So 4 food groups.
Hey, did I get them right spelling-wise, my friend?
Where do I see that? Oh yes, plants, animals, bacteria, fungi. You got it. Thank you. Thank you for posting that up. There's the 4 food groups, and universal. And I'm open. If anyone can think of anything that you eat, and if you're watching, type it in the comments right now. Let me know. And every once in a while, I get. Oh well, what about water? What about this? What about that? Okay, so there is a 5th food group, The fifth one is the elements of earth, air, fire, and water. That's kind of in a fifth food group. Of course, air, we all know that. It's the most vital nutrient that we need to take in and consume. And again, it's all about upgrading the quality that we intuitively know, right? How do you feel when you're beside a waterfall? How do you feel when you're on a beach, when you're in the forest? You just want to breathe in. It's a natural instinctive reflex. You know what's good for you. Your body wants it and will crave it. Let's say you're downtown on the bus, crammed in, right? It's like after work, it's like you don't want to breathe in too deep, full of positive ions. Seek out air as best you can. That's a good quality. Same with water, right? So that's another of that fifth food group for air, water, key nutrient. We can upgrade the quality at the very least, filter it. Spring water is an amazing experience, and it makes a difference, and your body knows the difference. And we are so blessed, Dune, where we live in Alberta. We have some of the best water. Even the tap water is incredible, and you can make it even better. Right? Using just a simple filter to take out the chlorine. Chlorine, I'm grateful for chlorine. It purifies our water. I know you and I, we've been to places in the world that are not so fortunate to have that in their water, and the consequences of not. But yet, when it comes to ingesting it into our body, I think it's wise to just simply remove it, right? Its function is to kill bacteria, pathogens, but it doesn't stop as soon as you ingest it, right? It continues to do that. We know now that we're made up of bacteria. We're more bacterial cells than human cells. And chlorine does have an effect on us. So we want to upgrade that and seek out different sources, going to a spring. The element of heat or fire, this idea of warmth of the sun. We're talking about the Light Cellar, right? The vitamin D that it creates, that is an essential nutrient. We need to be outside. We need to be connected to the sun. We need our eyeballs to see it. We need our skin to touch it. And it's for each of us to decide from our own personal space, genetics, all these factors, how much of that do we need and when do we need it? And then earth. Here's an interesting thing. People consume earth. It's called geophagy. Have you ever heard of the child wanting to just eat dirt, or the pregnant mother that's just suddenly drawn to eating clay? All animals consume earth as a nutrient, but also even as a detoxification element. Birds will consume clay along with certain fruits that have seeds that are high in certain anti-nutrients. The earth is able to bind onto that and eliminate those toxins. The eating of earth, geophagy, is something that we've lost in our culture and society, and it comes out in these kind of weird ways for people in places that they don't kind of think or expect or can't rationalize. And a lot of it's because we've been trained otherwise. Like, how many times does it take little Johnny's hand getting slapped and saying, don't eat dirt, that it begins to turn off of like, oh, I don't eat dirt.
Hey, tell us the elements again. I want to get it right in the right order. So it's air, water.
Yeah, no particular order: earth, air, fire, water, right? The four elements. Those are nutrients.
Okay, I will have it here. So earth, air, water, fire.
So we can think of that as like, the fifth food group, the fifth sacred thing.
Yeah. Tell me what came after fire again? Earth, air, water, fire.
Fire, yeah, earth, air, fire, water.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to just reflect on it. So in terms of again, the work that you do, how have you seen the trends over the last decade or two since you've been in it? Have you seen a sort of a pattern or trend? Maybe speak about how humans, the people that you work with, has there been a trend line that you can observe and share? Tell us a bit about that, the demographic responses.
Yeah, absolutely. So two trends going on. The one is the most exciting thing ever, which is how much this is growing, how much people are tuning into, taking responsibility for their own health, realizing like, oh, I can't just, do what I'm told by the media and, follow and buy the ads and the foods. Like, a really good example of that is one of my mentors years and years ago. Her family came from literally out of communist Soviet Union. They came to America, and amazing, the land of the free, the land of the abundant, and just went bought wholesale into this kind of idea, this lifestyle where you go to the grocery store. It's like the access is unbelievable, and it's also tasty. And you look on the side of the box, it's so scientific. It tells you what nutrients in there. I've got my vitamins in there. It's all been fortified. It's all great. It's all wonderful. And they just ate that diet, standard American diet, because that's what everyone does. We're in the land of the free. Well, very soon, very quickly, each one of them, all 4 family members, developed some sort of health condition. The mother was obese. There was arthritis. There was diabetes that developed. Each one of them had a condition that they were told, oh, sorry, here's your lot in life. Here's your medication. Go home and that's it. Like, you've got this, chronic disease, and eventually it'll kill you, but take your medication and away you go. After hearing that and given that solution, she's like, there's got to be a better way. And she didn't know what to do. So the first thing she started was she just went around. She started asking people. She'd be in the line in the bank, and someone was standing there like looking good. She's like, wow, like, what are you doing? Here's the problems I'm facing. She would start reading articles, start researching, and slowly took her health into her own hands. They reversed all those conditions, and they kind of retrain themselves. And this is the trend. There's a lot of people that have faced chronic disease, chronic conditions, that have reversed it, that they've taken their health back in their own hands. And as they've done that, they've moved the whole movement forward. Now there's more people doing this, We know that some of the top conditions in our society, the top killers, are lifestyle related, diet related, easily reversible. And so there is that trend. There's more and more science behind it. There's more and more anecdotal evidence behind it. And as we've all moved in that direction, as we've decided, like, we want real food, right? Farmers markets have been sprouting up. Health food stores. If you went to the health food store, like my wife, she was raised this way because her mom had to figure out how to navigate allergies. Each 3 of her kids had extreme allergies. They can't eat this, they can't eat that, right? A lot of people are facing that, and they go look for alternatives. In the 1980s, you couldn't find it, right? A health food store consisted of bulgur wheat and supplements. That was it. Soy milk. Oh, that stuff's horrible, right? If you can't do dairy, now you got so many different options. So that's amazing to see how much more accessible it's become and more prevalent it's becoming. So that is absolutely the trend. When I started doing what I was doing, I was one of the very few. Now there's a huge movement. Unfortunately, I do also see, and it's been there the whole time, and I don't know, how far do you want to go back? There's always other interests that feel threatened by this, right? Pharmaceutical industry. And I don't want to put out there as like, oh, it's a big conspiracy theory and pharmaceuticals are bad. No, just look at the pure facts of there is suppression of, and we got to put it in context. Like, absolutely, there's a lot of fake science out there, a lot of pseudoscience out there, there's a lot of like unfounded claims, but there's some serious, solid evidence, placebo-controlled, double-blind, randomized control studies proving the effectiveness of things like medicinal mushrooms. My friend Robert Rogers, he's based out of Edmonton. He just wrote his latest book. This man has written over 50 books on plant medicine, on mushrooms, fungal pharmacy it's called. And it's unbelievable what is known, what's out there. And yet it's still, a lot of this information is suppressed. A lot of products, I know personally, myself, I cannot access, I cannot import them. The government will not, health regulations will not let us use them. So unfortunately, as much as that is growing, there's also equally this kind of oppression against plant medicine, and that's been going on for a long time. So I think we need to bring those two together. We've got incredible modern medicine. We have incredible folk medicine, the people's medicine that we can use. And I think they're complementary. We can bring them together and we can let people choose, right? What do you need and what do you want in your own situation? And I think COVID, one of the biggest things it's bringing to light is this kind of, battle, and we're beginning to, I feel we're at the risk of losing our freedoms by being forced one way or another. And I know vaccines is going to be a hot topic. We don't have to get into that, but there's just one example, right? There's a lot of kind of pros and cons and people's for and against. And governments, what are they going to do? Health authorities, are they going to make a stand and say, nope, you have to? Well, not every medicine is everyone's medicine. Not every food is everyone's food. And I fully, truly believe in freedom of choice. That's where I stand on that.
Yeah, cool. Tell us, thank you for sharing that. Tell us about these podcasts you also have. So you have, again, online training, you have in-person training, you have events where you really just casually and informally kind of celebrate the food and all of that. So all their different formats, but you also have these podcasts as well. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is about, again, sharing the information. The more kind of educated we can all be, the better choices we can all make. And I don't know all the answers. I'll share what I do know, and I'll bring on certain guests and experts to share their wisdom, their knowledge. And sometimes it's a local food producer. Just today, actually, I had these guys on here. Weiss and Mama. It's two young guys. They're based out of Calgary. They've just started this company. They're less than 1 year old. Cool. And they're bringing the magic of what's called Wyusa, which is a leaf from the Amazon that it contains caffeine, but it has so many other benefits to it that's maybe an alternative for somebody that likes, the kind of the focus, the benefit of a coffee, but maybe doesn't necessarily work with the jitters, Wyusa provides that stimulation, but also kind of a calm clarity and a focus. Well, there's so much else out there that one could use. And so, we chatted about this morning, before you and I got on a call. I had a special guest. Cool. So it could be product focused. It could be, I've interviewed experts around mothers and postpartum. I've interviewed experts around, gut health and the microbiome. The answers are out there. There's so many people in this day and age still who are struggling with their health, and they just have not found the answers yet, but they are out there. And it's the same reason that you're doing this, introducing the people, your friends who are in your world that have something valuable to offer. I'm doing the same. So we'll often go live to Facebook. We have a YouTube channel. Just look up Light Cellar. The blogs, I got to catch up on that and repost them, but I'm always on top of Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, putting out the content that way.
Yeah, tell us, my friend, is that part of your artistic side also kind of come in there? I look and I say, how does this guy find all the time? You do, obviously, you own and run a company, and you got staff, and you probably got some contractors as well. And then you got this, you do some of the teaching yourself, educational pursuits. You do some of the kind of sessions that are informal gatherings and basically, and then all of the interviews and videos. How do you have a team helping you with some of the what I'm going to call the creative aspects of it, or is it how does that play out?
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't do it without the team, all the way from those on the floor to those behind the scenes in the back. I think we've got about 20 of us, some full-time, some contractors, and it does take a team. So I've constantly upping my game in certain areas to develop my skills and my capacity to create content, to contribute to the world, and then utilizing those that have skills. I mean, I'm sure this. It's kind of like being in a band. Some of us are damn good guitarists, and some of us are great with rhythm and drums. So we each have our own role. And I think the most important thing in life, but especially as a business owner, is to know what your top 3 strengths are and really focus on those. Initially, you have to do it all, right? You're the one-man band. You're the recording engineer. You are the marketer. You are the cover design. Like, everything falls onto your plate, and that's very important to begin as an entrepreneur, because you need to know. You need to know those things. You need to go through the process, understand how each of those things works, and so that when you do begin to hire it out, right? Someone to do your accounting, someone to do this, someone to do that. You know what's involved. You can have those intelligent conversations. You can help move the project forward. But a big trap a lot of people get into is that they never give up the control of that. They try and keep it all. And it's tough to get that timing, right? You don't want to hire out too soon. You don't want to hire out too late. You need to find that sweet spot, and you need to keep focusing on what you're really good at. The things, the absolute best thing I can do for myself, where I feel the most, fulfilled and the most in the flow and the most free and creative, is speaking. I love it. I mean, hopefully that comes through today. I'm having fun. This is the best hour. This is the best way I can spend my hour. It's
That's also how we met, right? Obviously, we met through CAPS. So yeah, Canadian Association of Professional Speakers, and you're on the board of the CAPS Calgary chapter there, of which I am a member now because CAPS Edmonton has, we decided on the board to shut it down at some point for all the right reasons. So I am now, in the last couple of years, a member of CAPS Calgary, where you are a board member there, my friend.
Yeah, totally. So, for you, you're the same. Like, one of your top three activities is speaking, and you know for sure what your other two are. There are times where I got to dig into the numbers and dig into the accounting, but most of the time, no. Right? I've got someone else on the team that can do that like that much quicker. But I do need to keep aware, and I do need to keep my awareness and connection to that, just not deep in the trenches every day. And that's how you make the magic happen.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned jazz earlier. I want to hear a little bit more about jazz, my friend. So how long of a journey did you have with, was it McEwen that you said, in the jazz program?
Exactly. Yeah, so I started drumming. Actually, I was drawn to it earlier on. I had an uncle of mine that was a drummer, and he's kind of I looked up to him as a hero. Here he was playing in a band, and he showed me his drum kit. And he lived over in Scotland, and so very early on, I started to take lessons. Well, that lasted, I think, 2 or 3 lessons. I got kicked out of lessons. I was just too young, just too immature. I would do things like go run and hide in the music store, and then he'd come up and the instructor would drum on his back. So anyways, that was short-lived. But when I was about 12, I bought my first drum kit for $50, and it was now kind of on my own terms and mostly self-taught. I'd have instructors come to my house, and music was my passion. It was my outlet. It was my connection to what was real, what I felt, deep in my heart, deep in my soul, of hey, this is it. This is what life's about. This is what I want to do. I wanted to eat, breathe, and sleep music, nothing but. So it was this interesting crossover from, I'm not sure where you stand on this, but I know that we all know someone or a spectrum of people. I had a friend who was completely self-taught, can't read a lick of music, right? It's all from ear or from heart. And then we know someone that maybe classically trained, and they were raised, playing the piano. They can play beautifully. They can actually play sometimes very complex music off the paper, but yet ask them to improvise, and that's where they get stuck. I was definitely, raised kind of a more at the end of the intuitive spectrum, and I always tried to kind of, increase my intellectual understanding and, how to read music and how to play sheet music and follow the structure and understand the theory. So when I went to college, I had begun in that direction. So it really just helped, take that up a notch. It's essential to form that foundation. And I was there for 2 years, literally nonstop, just playing music, learning it, listening to it, playing in bands, covering all the genres. And there was an experience that was happening to a lot of us students, is that we got too intellectualized about it. We were too much in our head that we'd overthink it, right? You kind of lose that natural ability. And one of the sessions we had, it was a man named Kenny Werner. He wrote a book called Effortless Mastery. He taught us how to just play one note, right? To get out of our heads and back into our hearts. And I think that's one of the challenges of the times in any discipline. And I'm sure you can relate to this in speaking. To me, speaking and music are very much the same, where you want and jazz exemplifies it, right? So jazz to me is the greatest form of music. I absolutely love it. And it exemplifies this principle that it can be some of the most incredibly complex music that you need to have mastered theory. You need to have mastered reading music, writing music, understanding the structures of it. But yet, the heart of it, when it comes down to it, is all about free creative expression, right? The head, complex chord changes, charts, etc. Boom, into solos. You forget all that. Now you're in your heart. With that foundation of that intellectual side, it's bringing together the two parts of your brain, bringing together your heart and your mind to be in that flow. The jazz musician is the best. They can do that. They can play a complex chart, yet they can also improvise. Some of the greatest speakers, they've got a structure, they've got a format, they understand the technicalities, they understand, how to put it together, and they're very intelligent in doing so, yet it all comes from the heart in the moment. They're just in that flow. It's not kind of robotic, like I noticed a lot of myself was slipping into that with music. So that's been my journey, that I learned so much through music, and I've tried to apply everything in my life. The same is for nutrition. We can over intellectualize it. We can lose ourselves in, okay, I need 10,000 milligrams of vitamin D, and I need this, and I need that, and these antioxidants, like, what is that? How do I relate to an antioxidant? I'm told that I need it, right? And we intellectualize this nutrition, where in fact, we need to come back to our heart, we need to come back to our senses, literally feeling into food, looking, smelling, tasting, and being able to trust that along with the science, right? It's a merger of both.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. And so I gotta ask, do you spend any time with music in the last, I don't know, decade, let's say 10 years, with your business being so demanding and so multifaceted? Have you beat at the drums at all or anything else?
Yeah. So yeah, great question. I would say 5%. Yes, I admit. And it's not as big a part of my life as I would like it. I'm at the same time also, I recognize where I'm at in life, that it had a time, it had a phase. My daughter, she's 15 going on 16. She's beginning to learn music. So we've had some connections around that. I've also got a very young son who, kids are just naturally drawn to it. I'm drawn to it. And initially for me, it was a big part of where I actually just needed to kind of step away for a while, explore some other avenues, develop my career. I knew I wasn't going to go into music as a career. Even after going through it, it was interesting. It was like, oh, this is all that I ever wanted to do, was do nothing but play music. And now that I'm doing it, I'm actually still unsatisfied, and there's something more, there's something deeper. That led me then into meditation and that whole journey, and then into food. And so I'm on that path, and music will always play a role in my life. I recently, even though I'm drum set, percussion, everything in that realm, I picked up a bass recently, so I've been playing that and learning with my daughter. And so I would like it to have more of a role in my life, absolutely. So right now it's about 5%, and I welcome more.
Yeah. And you mentioned the parallels between music and speaking. I want to add one more that you may not have mentioned, and that is the performance aspect of it, right? You are performing. If you're going to be a speaker in front of a group, yes, you are, obviously being authentic and all the other stuff that you talk about, but it is a bit of a performance. And so that satisfies that interest that you probably have in music as well, right?
Yeah, it totally does. And what's interesting actually is, being a drummer, as you as a guitar player, you're a little bit, and a singer, you're more up front. For me, I was always the background, right? I was just like, oh yeah, it's not about me. But what was interesting, what I had to grow into was as a speaker, like, you put yourself out there. It is about you. You are the face. And that was one kind of shift that I had to make in that performance realm, from music to speaking.
Yeah, that's quite a transition from a drummer there in the back of the stage to the sole speaker on stage, and there's no band members or anything. Not even a guitar to hide behind, right? Yeah. Well, I'm having lots of fun. So tell me, my friend, when I reach out and ask and say, hey, Malcolm, would you like to chat for an hour and a bit? And you say, yeah, sure. Was there areas or aspects we haven't gotten to that you thought we might want to kind of go next, my friend? I'm going to hand the steering wheel over to you. And is there an area that we haven't talked about that you'd like to talk about, my friend?
Well, yeah, maybe. So we did talk, quite at length about food, nutrition. Thank you for providing me that space to do that, to your audience, and for your ears and your willingness to have that conversation. And yeah, love that we brought in the speaking, love that we brought in the music. We did touch a little bit about business. That is another area that I'm so passionate about and want to help people with. I've got, almost 15 years of experience running a 7-figure business, and, having 20 staff, and, that whole learning. And I really feel it's not for everyone, but if you feel the call, if you feel like I did, I was like, I didn't want to trade my time for money. I didn't want to be stuck in a job. I wanted to create a life that would give me the freedom to be myself. And I truly believe that in this day, in this time and age, with all the technology and all the opportunity that we have, that is 100% possible. Follow your heart. Again, it all comes down to that for me. I'm a really, 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 really big advocate of following your heart, following your passion, show up, contribute. Starting a business, it's all about, to me, it's all about making the world a better place. And there's no better avenue, no more impactful avenue, I personally feel, than through the avenue of a business. Yeah. So
I'm curious. You mentioned before, but I wanted to maybe dig a little bit deeper. When you started your business, you mentioned it was in the basement or in the garage or whatever have you. How long did you go in that mode before you kind of rented space or bought space or whatever have you? Tell us about that transition there, my friend.
yeah, absolutely. We touched upon it just a little bit, but I would like to clarify that. So originally, like I said, it was in my basement. It was actually in my in-laws' basement. So mother-in-law, father-in-law, we were living with them. Like literally, I had just been hitchhiking, like living out of my backpack, like traveling for several years after, music school. I gave away everything. I gave away my drum kit. I gave away all my CDs. All kinds of things. And I just, went on this kind of spiritual pilgrimage and living a life of, literally like not using money, so on and so forth. And then coming out of that and realizing like, oh, okay, it's about being in the world, before I wanted to run away from the world, and which was valuable. I wanted to be able to find myself, figure out what I truly valued, so on and so forth. And then once I kind of came full circle to like, okay, I can show up, I can have a big impact in the world, be in the world to change the world is kind of my motto. And once I started setting that up, literally from nothing, it was in the in-laws' parents' basement for almost about a year, and then in our own basement for a year and a half, just totally under the radar. I had no business license, I had no formal training. It was just all kind of intuitive and unfolding. And then so almost about 2 years in is when we were like, okay, looks like this is happening, this is the direction we're taking. We started to formalize it. We rented a space. I didn't even have a business license or health inspection or anything, not even a sign for the first like 2-3 months. And I think, one of my biggest advice to people starting out, entrepreneurs, is, oftentimes we try and like get all the details figured out, and we try and like, cut the red tape and jump the hoops and do this and that. It's like, no, just start, it's that will come. Otherwise it's a distraction, and it's necessary, and you'll know when it's the right time. But I've seen so many people get stuck, get stopped at, oh, but there's all this to do. Like, how do I do this? And how do I do that? It's like, no, just start, and all those details will fill themselves in. There's that old saying, it's easier to beg forgiveness than it is to ask permission. Yeah. Just start. Get on it, and you'll figure it out.
Just like a band, you can spend years and years trying to develop the act, and then eventually trying to find a customer for that act. Or you can just start playing gigs, and those gigs will evolve you over the long run.
Totally, yeah. And that's a whole other analogy. I've learned so much from my journey with music, and that I've now applied to business. It's incredible. That could be a whole other conversation we get into.
Yeah, an imperfect show is still better than a non-existent show.
Yeah, exactly. Because you learn. And here's the best thing about that. If anyone's scared, if anyone has that fear, because I absolutely did. I held myself back because like, oh, I'm not quite ready, or it's not quite perfect. When you just start and you have an audience of one, be grateful you only have an audience of one, because you're going to work out all those kinks. You're going to, hit those wrong chords and hit those wrong notes. But you're going to work through it. And as you do, your audience grows, and so do your skills. And now as you build your audience, you build your skills, and you've built your message, or you've built your repertoire, now the audience grows with it. And you've gotten all those kinks out, all those bugs out when no one was watching.
Yeah. In other words, you want to be better than what the audience in the room expects, if you will. Another way of looking at it is, when you were selling it to perhaps a few friends or a few people, they expect a certain level, and you were able to operate at that. And then as you learn, you crank that up, and after you crank it up to a certain level, then you bring it to a larger group. And obviously, I do want to ask one more question about the early days, though. Did you have another job you were working at in order to kind of pay for the bills, or did you get into the business and kept your expenses really low? What was your strategy back then, my friend?
Oh, good. Awesome. Yeah. I'm so glad you asked that. I often have to like remind myself and go back into the journey. So everything was on a shoestring budget. I literally come from sleeping outside, hitchhiking around. So I had always lived very frugally. Just, working jobs long enough, like a month and a half to make enough money to go traveling again, do that kind of lifestyle. So it was on a super budget. We were living with my, wife's parents at the time in the beginning. The other thing that really helped as well is that it was almost, by fortuitous luck, we had gotten involved in a supplement company that was, multi-level marketing, direct, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that did for a long time, created a little bit of passive income. We couldn't rely on it completely, but it was anywhere from $100 to $1,000 a month over several years. And so that really helped. So for instance, a big part of my journey and a good part of it together is I'd studied nutrition. And then I was like, okay, great. I got this piece of paper. I knew that was a starting point, a formalizing point of my training, of my education, of my path into this window, into this career. But I knew I wanted more. I wanted more like hands-on, tactical, practical experience. So I went and moved my family. I had a little infant and my wife. We went down to Arizona. We lived out of our car, camping for 4 months, and then ended up getting some accommodation sponsored for us. And it was a work exchange. I couldn't legally work. I wasn't paid. So our room and board eventually was covered. And I trained as a raw food chef. And then it was a 3 months training. And then I stayed on for another year, just volunteering at that organization, teaching that program. I was one of like 3 head chefs. My wife, she first started in the Sprout House, and then she did colonics down at that clinic. And that was huge amount of learning, huge amount of experience that we gained. And we did it on a super, super cheap. So, the $200 a month or whatever we were getting at that time from the supplement company, supplemented things like insurance and things that we were not getting paid for down there, but it built our experience. And then when we came back to Calgary, we're like, okay, we've got so much experience now. We've got this track that we're on. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's live with your parents. Once that got too much, literally, we couldn't handle it anymore. And we were ready to make that next leap. It's like, okay, we got a couple of customers. That revenue stream had started from classes, from selling a bit of product that we were able to get our own place. My wife was still doing colonics at the same time, which we used to joke it was a feed 'em and clean 'em kind of business. Mm-hmm. And just multiple streams of income. They were all very small streams of income. And then slowly, each of them grew. And definitely the retail aspect has taken on to be, the largest stream, but all those other ones still exist, except for the colonics that doesn't exist. But, creating products, teaching, as a revenue source. So it's multiple streams and have just grown in that way. And yeah, I can't remember the last time I got a check from that supplement company. That's been years and years. But it did in the beginning for sure.
So tell us, my friend, I'm just bringing in a photo of your wife here because I believe this is her. Tell me if I'm wrong. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Now, there might be another photo that you want to share, but I just happened to wander onto your Facebook page there. And so you had another baby recently. Tell us, is that right? Or am I getting it wrong?
Yeah, no, you got it right. Yeah, and it's funny, actually, in that picture, look, I'm wearing the same thing. You learn that in the speaking business, right? That you have that.
There you go.
Similar thread go through. So anyways, yeah, my wife and I, we've been together almost 17 years now. Very earlier on in our getting to know each other, even though the first moment we met, we knew we'd be together. We had a child that was not planned, but was the most beautiful, prolific turning point in our lives. To get activated, to be a part of the world, to contribute, to make the world a better place. Kids are no better inspiration than that. So she's almost 16 now. And we always knew we would have a second. I've known for 10 years I was going to have a boy. It was just a matter of when. It was a matter of the store and the shop having its own stability, that it could run by itself. It was a matter of my wife feeling that she was ready. And so just this last August, so my son is just over a year old now, year and a month, and we are absolutely loving it. It's so much fun. And I'm grateful to have him in our lives. And it's amazing to do it again, right? It's like you forget all those early stages as a parent, and we have so much more wisdom, so much more knowledge now that we can bring to the table. So sorry, Onwa, that you were the guinea pig. We learned through you, and now we have so much to. There he is. There's Eska. That's him right there.
ESKA.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful boy. Wow. Well, congratulations. Remind me, what's your wife's name again?
Laura.
Laura. Congratulations to you and Laura, and of course your whole family there, Malcolm. And as we round the corner here, my friend, what I'm going to do is going to ask you to kind of quote summarize or conclude and take us home in whatever fashion, my friend. I'm going to just gonna take the photo out here, and we're going to have you just kind of wrap it up for us here.
Okay, absolutely. Whatever you are pursuing, whatever moment you're in, whatever your heart yearns, I would say follow your heart, right? Follow those golden threads that are through your life. They will take you far. Never give up on your dreams. Follow your passion. Follow your truth. Know that you can live it. You can realize it. You can actualize it. Life is amazing. I feel so fortunate and so blessed that all is going so well. And I think whether one believes in past lives and karma, maybe that's going on, but I think it's a big part of being uncompromising and following my truth, following my heart, knowing inside what I know is possible for this life, and not accepting anything less. And at the same time, being patient, that it takes time. There's been so many times in my life that I've just been devastatingly frustrated with the world and with how things were going. Like literally, I wanted to escape from the world. I didn't want to be part of the world. I didn't like the direction it was going. I didn't like hearing about the environmental destruction and seeing it, and politics and this and that and money and blah, 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 blah. But at some point, there was a shift. There was a turn that says, you know what? Yeah, I got to be in the world to help change the world. And we each have a role. What that role is, you know what it is. It's in you. It's in your heart. Maybe it's music. Maybe it's speaking. Maybe it's food. Maybe it's nutrition. There's something that you have to bring to this world. Only you know what it is deep inside. It may take a while to get that clarity. And if you don't know, even if that voice is too small right now, you know what in this moment you can do to help bring that about. Keep moving in that right direction. Have the patience, put in the time, put in the effort. And I feel if we all did that, the world would be an absolutely magical, so much better of a place. And it's on each of us to do that, to create that beauty.
Yeah. In other words, you've been to the edge. And you came to the realization that you want to be part of the solution. You want to be a contributor and not somebody who just simply judge the world and say, well, I have, and there's nothing I can do. I'm just so disillusioned, whatnot. So you came to that clarity where you say, the world is the way it is, and I need to understand it. And it sounds like you understood it. And then, how do I contribute to it? How do I become part of the solution rather than,
Yeah, totally. And you'd asked me earlier, like, what is my mission? And here we have it scrolling across on the screen. Through the Light Cellars, to help people find and craft their own food and medicine, to raise their level of health. And that's 100% true. And for me personally, separate as an individual, through Light Cellar, through so many other channels, through Hippie CEO and in business talks and everything that I give, it's all about inspiring positive contribution in the world. That's my ultimate mission.
Well, wonderful. So on that note, friends, you've been listening to Malcolm all the way from Calgary, and Malcolm Saunders, again, has shared a lot with us today, but take away what you need to in order to, again, as he says, upgrade your diet, upgrade your eating, upgrade your life, really, whether it's medicinal or whatever have you. So really just be conscious of what we take in. And the more we are focused on the right things, the more we're going to have a better life in the long run. So thank you for that, Malcolm. And I'm just going to, you know what, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do the bookend. I'm going to play the video here as you and I go back into the green room for a minute or so. And I'm just going to let this video play here, my friends. So it's going to just come in here, and we'll do this.